Every story starts somewhere, some begin with fate, some begin with disaster, and some begin with a moment so awkward that it forces two strangers to look at each other differently for the rest of their lives. Mine began by the river, on a day when the sunlight was too warm, the wind too gentle, and life too peaceful for me to predict that everything was about to change. I wasn't expecting to save anyone. I wasn't expecting to meet someone who could shake my quiet world. And I definitely wasn't expecting to hand over my shirt to a girl who stood half hidden behind a rock, soaked, shivering, embarrassed, and yet somehow still too proud to ask for help. If I had known who she would become to me, maybe I would have stopped time right there, before anything got complicated. But life moves forward, dragging us with it, and that moment became the opening chapter of something far more meaningful than I could ever imagine. I was walking along the riverside trail, letting the calm water drown out the noise inside my head, when I heard splashing, panicked, uneven, not the playful kind. At first I thought it was just a dog, or a fish breaking the water's surface, until I heard a voice, trembling but trying to stay strong. Help! Before my brain had time to think, my body was already moving. I sprinted toward the sound and found her struggling near the riverbank, the current stronger than it looked, pulling her farther in. I jumped in without hesitation, the cold shocking my skin, but adrenaline kept me going. I grabbed her arm, steadied her, and guided her toward the shallow edge. She wasn't drowning, not exactly, but she was exhausted, scared, and barely balanced on her shaking legs. By the time we reached the rocks, she immediately ducked behind the nearest boulder, her voice shaky and embarrassed. Don't look. My clothes, the river washed them away. I only had them set down for a second. I didn't think the water would reach them. Her tone carried more panic about that than the near accident she'd just survived. I turned around instantly, staring at the trees, hands raised like someone being questioned by the universe itself. I'm not looking, I said quickly. Then, after a moment of silence, I added softly, Are you okay? She hesitated before responding, her voice smaller. I'm cold, and embarrassed. Mostly embarrassed. Without thinking, I pulled my shirt off and held it behind me. Here. Take my shirt. There was a long pause. Then a quiet, vulnerable whisper. Really? I'm not walking away until you take it. Otherwise I'd feel like a horrible human being. She let out a tiny laugh, a shaky one, but still a laugh. She took the shirt and slipped it on, and I only turned when she told me it was okay. When I finally saw her, she stood with wet hair clinging to her cheeks, my oversized shirt reaching almost to her knees, and an expression that tried to look strong but couldn't hide how shaken she really was. Thank you, she said, avoiding my eyes. For helping, and for not, looking. I nodded, feeling something stir inside me, concern, curiosity, something else I couldn't name yet. Anyone would have helped. No, she said quietly, meeting my eyes for the first time. Not anyone. Her name was Liana, and what started as a rescue slowly turned into a walk home filled with awkward humor, shared stories, and the kind of strange comfort two strangers shouldn't feel but somehow do anyway. She was honest to a fault, stubborn, emotional, and unexpectedly brave. And as we walked, soaked shoes squishing with every step, I realized she wasn't just someone who needed help, she was someone who hadn't been helped much at all in life. Over the next days, she kept finding small excuses to meet again, returning my shirt, giving me snacks as repayment, asking if I liked walking by the river often, pretending she happened to be there too. Every time, she laughed easily, talked openly, but beneath that brightness was something cracked, something she tried to hide with jokes. I didn't push her. I just stayed. And that was enough for her to start letting down her walls. Weeks later, I learned the truth: Liana didn't have many people to rely on. Her family was distant, her friendships unstable, her life full of moments where she had to be her own support system. She was strong, but not because she wanted to be, because she had to be. And somewhere along the way, our small meetings changed. She started opening up about her fears, her dreams, her insecurities. I listened. Not because I wanted anything from her, but because she trusted me with pieces of herself no one else had seen. One afternoon, we sat by the same river where we first met. She was quieter than usual, hugging her knees to her chest. Do you ever feel like you're always fighting alone? She asked. I nodded. More times than I can count. She looked at me, eyes soft. It's weird, but when I'm with you, I don't feel alone. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, really looked, and realized that somewhere between all the jokes, rescues, and quiet moments, she had become someone I cared about more than I ever planned to. But life doesn't like calm waters. It tests the people who finally find peace. The next challenge came when a sudden storm rolled in one weekend while Liana was out near the riverside sketching. The water rose fast, too fast. When I realized where she was, panic shot through me. I ran, heart pounding, praying history wasn't about to repeat itself. When I found her, she was trapped near the edge again, the water swelling dangerously close. She wasn't crying, but her fear was painted across her face. When she saw me, she whispered, "You came." Without hesitation, I grabbed her hand and pulled her away from the rising flood, holding her close even after she was safe. She clung to me, shaking. Why do you always come?" she asked against my chest. "Because you matter," I whispered. "More than you know." She buried her face into my shoulder and let the tears fall, tears she never allowed anyone else to see. And in that moment, something inside both of us shifted, not forced, not rushed, just inevitable. Later, when the storm calmed and her breathing steadied, she pulled away slowly, cheeks red but eyes honest. "Back then, when I lost my clothes and hid behind that rock, you didn't laugh, you didn't stare, you didn't make me feel small." "I never would," I said softly. She smiled, a smile that held vulnerability and courage in equal measure. "Take my shirt," you said. "You saved me without making me feel ashamed." "And I'd do it again," I answered. 1,000 times. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Then, can you stay?" "Not because I'm scared. Not because I need saving. But because I don't feel alone with you." I placed my hand gently over hers. "I'm not going anywhere." And when she wrapped her arms around me, holding on as if finally allowing herself to trust someone fully, I realized that our story wasn't about a rescue, it was about two people learning to lean on each other, learning that vulnerability doesn't make you weak, and learning that sometimes love begins not with perfection, but with fear, embarrassment, and unexpected kindness. Some stories begin with pain, ours began with a river, lost clothes, and one borrowed shirt, but it grew into something much stronger, something that taught both of us the same lesson: love doesn't always start beautifully, but it grows beautifully when both hearts choose to stay.